Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in today. Excited, we're going to run through the Impeller investment platform. Before we do that, I am Brian Borgery. I run innovation, investment, and entrepreneurship efforts at Invest Puerto Rico, which, if you're not aware, is the business and investment attraction agency for the island. So anything new coming to the island, investment, companies, creating jobs, that sort of thing, we are in charge of. We're a nonprofit and we work hand in hand with the government to help grow Puerto Rico and our economic development. Specifically, Impeller is one of the projects that I lead. I'm excited about it. It's been just over a year and it's already taken off with quite good traction, in my opinion. I have been launching platforms for almost a decade now, and Impeller is just blowing my mind every time, just with its growth, despite not having entire teams and companies to be running everything. But just to go from a high level, before we dive into the platform specifically, Impeller was created to ease the flow of capital into the island, to make it easier for deals and investors to find each other and hopefully transact. There's a lot of investment opportunity in Puerto Rico, but most of the world doesn't know it, both on and off the island. So one of the main goals is that Impeller will be a platform that can grow into a central place for anything capital raising focused on the island of Puerto Rico, to make it easier for investors, especially those who are off island or aren't quite plugged in, to find deals. And it's already starting to do that. So a little bit of traction I just want to hit on, and then we'll start going through things. After I give a little bit of update, we will go look through the platform from an investor standpoint. That'll probably only take maybe 10 minutes. Then we're going to switch gears and kind of look at the back end and what it looks like to actually list a deal for those who are looking to raise capital. So feel free to jump off if all you care about is the investment side, but feel free to stay on as long as you want, especially those who are looking to list a deal. We'll go through, and feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'll periodically look at it, although I will be driving the webinar, so I won't be watching as closely or in real time, I should say. So a couple of stats I'll hit on. In a little over a year, we've reached about 910-ish investor accounts created on the platform, which is amazing. Now, these investor accounts and investors are across the gamut. So what I mean by that is there's individual investors, regular retail investors, as you would call them, who maybe are only looking to invest a couple $1,000s, all the way up to companies like BlackRock or Goldman Sachs or a $40 billion family office. So there's a cross section of a little bit of everything. There's both on and off island investors. There's over 100 institutional investors signed up. The vast majority, however, are angel investors. And the majority of those angel investors currently anyways reside on the island, which is really interesting and awesome. And those have actually been some of the most active investors on the platform to this point, are those angel investors that do live here on the island. At this moment, the two biggest categories of investment have been tech startups, followed by agriculture, which has also been very interesting. So to dive into things, I did not go through the sign-up process because that's nothing that I want to jump through and open emails or anything on this webinar, but luckily it's a very simple sign-up process. So when you go to the website, which is just impeller.investpr.org, and you can find it on investpr.org directly, you'll have a choice to create either an investor account or an issuer account. They're pretty straightforward. If you create an investor account, you're going to look at things through the eyes of an investor. It's free. Accounts are free to make, so you don't have to hold off or anything like that. Go ahead and make your free account. If you want to list a deal, just make sure it's an issuer account because you're going to have different options, and I'll show that to you. So we'll start it with the investor, and we'll just go high level on that. Once you log in, you're brought to this page that you see here. We call it the Impeller Deal Doc. Here you'll see, based on category or sector, the different types of deals that are currently live. Now, one thing to know about the platform is the platform can cater to any type of regulation within the United States. So any exemption that's legal in the US, we can technologically handle. We do not do Reg CF offerings. We're capable, but that costs a lot more money and has a lot more overhead and compliance and a bunch of stuff that we just don't want to deal with. So we partner with other platforms if someone specifically wants to raise capital using Reg CF. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Reg CF, we can talk offline and I can share some other information on that. We're not going to get into to all of that right now. So as you can see, what I've been looking through, you see all these different deals and different sectors and things like that. And you can see how much they're raising. You can also see ones that have already successfully raised also here as well. So from an investment standpoint, pretty straightforward. Just come and look and find what type of deal, at least from an industry focus, that you're looking at. Once you find one that you like, you can go ahead and click on it and start to get more information. So I'm going to just show a couple different ones to see, so you can see kind of how it's broken up in the types of information they give. So let's check out this Eco Adventure Park right here, which I'm personally excited for because I have 4 kids and I just want to bring them to a park. So this will be awesome. So what you'll find is there's going to be 2 types of investment structures or deal structures on the platform. There's going to be straight up investment opportunities that are ready to take in your capital right now. And there's going to be ones like this that are just about ready to launch that you'll see it says express investment interest. So they're garnering interest in anticipation for that deal to go live. So the difference there is if it has the express interest to invest, it's non-committal. So even if you put in a dollar amount, you're not actually having to pay that right then and there. You're saying, I'm interested in this amount. And then you'll answer some other questions, what types of deal structures, whether it's debt or equity or different things like that. You can fill out what types of vehicle you like to invest in, as well as some other questions just about your interests. So in that case, when it's one that's garnering interest, it's going to be a little bit more generic information. You're not going to get into all the deal terms here on the platform until it's fully live, but you will be able to look through pitch decks, things like that. As you can see here. So I'm going to show you a couple others as well to see kind of how those are structured. For example, one that's already actively bringing in capital, you can see this deal, Fusion Farms, showing their progress for this specific round. You can look on the left-hand side, put in how much you want, and they'll always say the minimums of how much they're willing to take in from an investor. If this is just a best practice, I can't guarantee anything. But if for some reason you want to invest less and you just really, really want to, you can always reach out and see if they're willing to take something, but they have a minimum for a reason. So don't get your feelings too hurt if it's higher than you're willing to do. On that note, as you can see, you should be able to find all the general information you want here on this offering details tab. So all the basic info, hopefully to catch your interest, give you an idea of if this is something that you care about or not. Then document section. This is where you're really going to find the repository of all the different information you want to know as an investor. That's going to be everything from basic information to maybe specifics, in this case, lease agreements they have and other things like that. Now, one of the things that we do, and we'll get more into this later from the issuer standpoint, is you can see here on some of these documents, there's a lock. And that lock means there's a restriction set in place before you can see it. And that restriction can be anything from you have to make sure that you have filled out your profile so we know who you are, to signing an NDA, or just asking the issuer of the deal if you can see it and they can say yes or no. So there's different levels of access. So if for whatever reason you get a message saying you can't look at something, that means that there's something that you need to do to be able to see that. So in this case, the document folders, I'm able to see that because I've shown that. And sometimes that's just proving that you're an accredited investor. So all these are going to have the same basic structure, and you can look through some of the things. Again, I mean, we'll just pull up another one here. With the document section, there's also video sections, Q&A, contact us, all very straightforward. So the short of it is, come through, look at the deals. If you have questions, feel free to ask in the Q&A, reach out directly for contact us. A clarification I will make sure to make is Invest Puerto Rico does not get involved in any of these deals. We are more of a marketing, matchmaking, exposure platform. We're a nonprofit. We're not broker dealers. We're not investment advisors. So we can make connections. We can answer general questions and things about the platform, how that works, but we won't be getting involved in the deals themselves. So it is really between the investor and the issuer who's listing the deal. Now, some deals, depending on what exemption they're raising capital under, for example, you can see this one is a Reg D 506C. For those who don't know what that is, essentially that's an exemption that allows you to raise as much capital as you need to, only from accredited investors, but it's okay to publicly solicit, to share it in the public, which is why you can see it right now, because it's something that's okay to be put out in front of everybody, at least from an initial marketing standpoint. But if someone's going to invest, then they have to be accredited. Again, that's other discussions for another video, but just so you have an idea. Now, on that note, there are deals that do technically exist on Impeller that you won't be able to see unless maybe you've already self-attested that you are an accredited investor or fulfilled some other requirement or are invited to. So the platform does handle private deals as well. So if you are an investor looking at these deals, and you don't see something that's interesting to you, feel free to reach out and send us a message on the platform or reach out to me directly. There could be other private deals that you may or may not qualify to see that aren't publicly being shown. So we're happy to take that by a case-by-case basis. So that's the basic gist of things. You can also, you might have seen on some of these deals up here in the right-hand corner, you can share the offering as well. So if they're allowed to be shared from a legal standpoint, you can easily share to social media, email, get a link, things like that too, if you want to spread the love a little bit. So the last part I'll go through from an investor standpoint. Now, this is a test account, so I'm not going to have a lot of information to show this, but you see up here, there's a portfolio section. Once you've invested, that'll start showing pie charts and different things like that. You can see if you have any pending transactions and whatnot, so you can keep track of your investment. And as you invest more, there's more options you'll have to see what's going on with your companies that you've invested in. My account's pretty straightforward. Just shows account information, name, all that stuff. My documents, again, if you're having any awaiting signature, waiting to e-sign something, an NDA, subscription agreement, something like that, that's all here completed. So again, you have your repository of your documents as well. So I'm going to take 1 second to look over to a different screen to see if there's any questions from an investor standpoint. If you do have any questions before we switch gears to an issuer standpoint, drop them in the chat right now and we'll see. Otherwise, we'll just start moving along to the issuer standpoint. One thing I will say, as I'm giving people a chance to put in questions they may have, is from an issuer standpoint, we have a lot of companies. We have over 300 companies that have accounts looking to list deals. We've only pushed out about 10% of those live on the platform. A lot of what we run into is a lot of people haven't raised capital before, or they're just not ready, or they're missing certain pieces to list the deal, and that's fine. What we do, again, we're specific on attracting new business and investment. We'll do our best to introduce you to other organizations or accelerators or programs that can also help, or service providers or lawyers or different things like that, to fill in those gaps of what you need before you can list. So now we're going to go through from an issuer standpoint. I'm going to swap accounts, or you can technically have an investor and an issuer account. So I'm just going to swap over to an issuer account. And you'll notice on the left-hand side, there's a whole new sidebar that wasn't there from the investor view. So in this case, this is where you're going to be able to manage any deals that you want to list yourself from. So the first thing you'll do is you'll go over to offers here on the left-hand side once you've created an issuer account. And excuse me. And this is where you'll be able to add offers. I already have a test one just right here, which we'll jump into. And every deal is going to start out with a basic template like this. It's very drag and drop. It's very easy, or WYSIWYG editor style. Try to make it as easy as possible. I already started playing around adding modules here. So first off, get your pictures. We try to be helpful and even show you the dimensions for pictures to put in here. You can create different sections. This is just like a little summary section. And when you look here, you can add new sections, edit, trash, duplicate, up, down. So you have all the options right there. When you go to add a new section, these are the options you'll have. Summary, which is what this red piece is right here. Tiles, which is what you see down here in the green. Text is pretty straightforward. Images, video, data tables and charts, PDFs. Your deck you can just upload. Or if you're technical, you could custom code this whole thing and make it fancy if you want to. But for most of us who aren't hardcore developers, we'll just stick to these sections. I'm going to pick one right now just to show you kind of what that looks like. So I'm just going to do, let's just do a text box. So here you're going to have, it's going to be very straightforward, title, subtitle, text. You can choose different style, bullet or check marks. It tries to keep it as simple as possible. You can also adjust design a little bit with alignment, color, background, things like that. You can also adjust access. So maybe for some reason, this bucket of text, you don't want everyone to be able to see. You just want to make sure they're signed in, or they're on a pre-approved list or something. That may not be applicable to you. Most people don't use this part for this main page that we're building out right now, just because this main page is what you want to have information on to actually catch people's attention. So this is where you build out as a best practice. You want to put anything that is enticing, that hook, because this is going to be the first thing that someone sees, an investor sees, and you want to have whatever information that is going to be relevant and interesting enough that they move on and go to your documents section, for example. So here is the documents section. Now, when we're filling this out, best practice is you want to put everything about your company and the deal that an investor would need to know or want to know to be comfortable investing on the platform. So whether it's on this main page or in this document section or videos, you want to have it all here. And so you feel safe and secure in doing that as a secure document room. We're going to run through restrictions, which I was showing you before. So just because it's here doesn't mean anyone and everyone's going to see it. So you can add folders and individual documents. You can see here on the right-hand side, you can upload an entire folder. So let's say you already have a whole folder tree worked out with folders and subfolders on your computer. You could just upload the whole thing at once. You can sort the order, how you want the documents within the folder to be organized. And then here is what I want to focus on, is this add a restriction section. And this is where you can control who sees what, when, and all those details. So just briefly running through this, acknowledge agreement, what that does is allows you to put in essentially a checkbox agreement. So saying by checking this box, you're acknowledging that whatever you want them to acknowledge. E-sign agreement, most commonly used for NDAs. So we do have e-signing capabilities and functionality in the platform. So in that case, they can literally just electronically sign an NDA or whatever other agreement you want. Request access will just notify you as the issuer and anyone else on your team that you designate that someone wants access, and you can grant them access or not based on whatever your decision tree is. Account list, not commonly used because you're normally on the platform to find new investors, but if you have people on a pre-approved list, then they can automatically see what's on the platform. So where this is most likely to be used is, let's say you do have a list of potential investors or people that are already in your network. You have no idea if they're going to invest or not, but you could upload that list, and if they come to the site, they can maybe have freer access to information than a new person who just came through the platform that you've never met before. Accredited investors or users, this will have them self-attest, so essentially read through and agree that they've satisfied the accreditation requirements. KYC completed, so if you want, we have integrations with Know Your Customer. That's what KYC stands for. We have integrations that for a few bucks a piece will run through checks at a high level, just so you know if there's any major red flags or if they're on a terrorist watch list or something like that before they see the document. Or a very common one is just to make sure the person has a complete profile. Maybe you don't want just any rando to look at XYZ document, but as long as they have a complete profile, we know who they are, we have all that basic information, contact info, that's normally fine. So again, you have control over who sees what and when it comes to documents, so you can feel comfortable putting everything here. And then that makes the investment process way easier because the investor doesn't have to go back and forth, send a bunch of emails, hope your attachment's not too big or whatever it is. Everything's just right here. And when you do get reached out to by an investor, it's not going to be over something like, hey, send me a document. It's going to ideally be honed in on very specific questions they have that, once resolved, hopefully lead them to investing. So this is the document section, and then you can build that out with as many documents as you need. Video is straightforward. You can upload videos as a best practice. Using a link, and YouTube works well, although the YouTube shorts kind of are weird for this, but YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, Zoom recording, other, they all work, but I've had the best luck if you have like a YouTube or Vimeo. Zoom recordings, I guess, work well also, just having that link. So pretty straightforward. Updates. So updates can be dynamic. And what I mean by that is when you go to post an update, you're going to have an option to who this update is visible to. So in this case, the default is to logged in users. You could have an update that's visible to everybody or to investors only. So either during or after a deal is already closed, you can still be using this platform to send updates about the deal to your investors. So it's not just keeping people updated leading up to the investment, but even after the fact, whether it's for investors or even the general public. Maybe you want people to know that something got completed or you hit a new milestone, even if they didn't invest, just so they find out. Because again, a lot of the benefit from being on a platform like this isn't just finding investors. It's honestly just the exposure. It's a free market, not free, but it's very cost-effective marketing because you're already looking for investors. And even if they don't invest, they could be a customer or know someone who could be, or it's just in their brain. So just being out here is good from a marketing standpoint. Question and answer is honestly just really straightforward. When an investor comes through, they'll have an option to just type a question and then you can answer it. So pretty straightforward. Contact us, also self-explanatory. If you have like Zoom integrations and things like that, you can have people set up a meeting right on your calendar. So that's kind of the structuring aspect. Now for like the heart of how the deal is going to function is here on the left-hand side. And just as a note, save your changes. It's always good to save changes often so you don't do the whole thing. Your computer crashes or browser crashes and you lose stuff. So save as often as you want and submit. That is going to submit it to me for review. That does not mean it's going to go live publicly in front of the whole world. So don't worry about that. It's just submitting to me and I'll get an email saying, hey, they're submitting this. I'll take a look at it. I'll give you feedback. Let you know if there's anything not completed or red flags I see or anything else like that. So you don't have to worry that anything will ever go live in front of the world without you knowing about it. There's definitely processes that need to be followed, which I'll go through in a minute. So below this, you'll see basic info is exactly what it says. What account you're raising under, your company name, short description, filing type. This we'll get into maybe on a different video or on a case by case, but it's showing essentially the exemption or regulation you're raising capital under, and that will automatically adjust in the back end if your deal's able to be shown publicly or not, things like that. And again, if you don't know what that is, well, one, you can always reach out to me. And if you're raising capital, you should definitely have a securities attorney, counsel, someone looking over what you're doing, especially when you're new at it. So there are a lot of startups, but we also have groups or broker dealers or funds that do deals all day, every day. So if you don't know, don't be afraid to ask. You definitely want to understand what you're getting yourself into. And we are more than happy to connect you to the resources you need to do everything and have everything put into place. Security type, equity, debt, cash. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just fill in what is applicable. So again, it says if applicable, if it's shares or unit-based, great. If it's debt, then you probably won't be doing that. So fill out this information. Make sure you save. Then you can go back. This economic development info section is internal. It's not publicly shared. We're an economic development organization, so we collect things like how much capital is actually going to be deployed on the island from what is raised, or how many jobs do you see being created from this funding round, and things like that. So periodically we'll probably add some more questions in there, but just please fill those out. And know that it's internal, just as we're tracking what's happening on the island. We won't share that publicly. Investor flow. Now, I have more options on the investor flow that I control to help you guys out. In this case, you're just deciding minimum, maximum investment amounts, if you want to allow fractional shares, if that's even applicable to you. Call to action buttons. So if you want to change the name, I mean, I suggest leaving them as standard unless there's a specific reason not to. So leave the invest button to say invest is probably a good practice to follow. But you can technically have control of that as well. If you want to link your Calendly calendar, things like that, you have control of that. If you have another URL or website you want them to reach out to you through, you can put that in here in addition. So if you want them to have a custom message or just say, hey, I have a question, like the generic message, or let them do a custom one, I think that's a pretty good idea to do. And then even down to, so once the transaction's confirmed or the investment's confirmed, if you want to have a special message besides the generic thank you for investing and things like that, you can go ahead and do that right here. And same thing. So you just have control of what these buttons say all across this offering. Again, if you have questions, let me know, and we can also share other information for you guys as well. And don't worry, I don't expect anyone to remember everything I'm going through right now. We are recording this, and assuming I don't do anything crazy and blow things up or whatever, we'll share the recording with you guys as well, so you can come back to this. And when you have specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We can go through more one-on-one. Display is just more options that you have. So one thing is showing funding progress. This allows you to manually put in any investments that you do off the platform. So where Impeller is different than virtually all other investment platforms, because this is run through a nonprofit economic development organization and not through a for-profit company or a broker-dealer or anything like that. We're very flexible. So for one, we're open to any type of deal offering industry, as long as it's legal and it's not going to make Puerto Rico look bad. You're eligible to list on the platform. Also, if you want to do your raise partially through the platform, but you have other people who want to invest offline, or maybe it's an old person who wants to physically write a check instead of wiring money or doing anything electronically, that's fine. We're not going to force you to do things one way or another, but we will be flexible in allowing you to raise how you want to raise. In this case, you can manually update any outside capital you bring in. You can also even create manual transactions, so they're technically registered in the platform, even if they didn't go through and do it in real time. That way you can keep track on the back end of your cap table and everyone who's invested and what amount. So again, most of these are pretty straightforward, these check boxes, and most you don't really need to do anything with, but they're for those who want to really get granular and testing around. If you want to add new tabs besides like the updates and video and documents and everything, you can do that. So this is the basis of creating your deal. So there's a lot of little things, but it goes pretty quickly. And if you have all your information together, if you have your decks, if you have all that, then you can be listed quite quickly. Those who are either really go-getters or just do this all the time, I've seen people have their deals ready in like 2 days. So when people ask how long does it take, honestly, it depends on how long it takes you. It's very simple on our end. Obviously, we do look through things as well. We don't just let anything get listed on the platform. So we do have a minimum level of quality and things that we check on our end. However, just because you are listed on the platform does not mean you have an official sign off from Invest Puerto Rico or me that people should invest. We're not getting involved at that level. We're not telling people they should or shouldn't. Just because you're listed on the platform does not mean you have any official blessing, but it does mean you fulfilled the requirements necessary to list and get in front of our investor network and hopefully more new investors coming through the platform as well. At the end of the day, as an issuer, responsibility all still comes back on you. It's your company. You're the one raising the capital. We'll help you where we can, but we're not investment advisors. We're not lawyers. We're not CPAs. And even if some of us are, we're not in that capacity to do that for you from the Invest PR Impeller standpoint. So in that regard, you definitely want to make sure you are connecting with the appropriate counsel and professionals to make sure you're doing things right. And as I've already mentioned, happy to connect you with people who need to. So jumping on a few more things, and then we'll take questions and wrap up. As you can see, there's different integrations that we have as well on the platform. So let's say you've already raised and you want to continue using the platform to manage your investors. That can be done. You can also see engagement and transactions and manage stuff, which I'll walk you through here. But we have integrations with a couple different things. And I'll share this specifically with people. We won't go through every one of these integrations here, but we have integrations to do third-party accreditation verifications and bad actor checks and things like that. We have integrations for secondary trading markets like T0 and others. If you want to be able to make it easy for your investors to sell their shares even before you've gone public or sold or have a liquidity event. We have integrations with investment relations platforms that go way more in detail for managing and maintaining investor communications on an ongoing basis. There's integration, transfer agents to manage stock and things like that. There's integrations with online escrow creation and being able to take in crypto and other things like that. If you don't want to handle that and you want a trust to do that for you, we have integrations on that. So there's a lot of different integrations we also have, depending on how automated you want to be in an investment process. If you want everything, even the payment, to be done right on the platform in real time, that can be done. Now with those integrations, there's almost always, not always, but almost always an additional cost depending what you're doing. If you're having a third party verify someone's accreditation for you, that's going to cost like $30 per check, things like that. So those are things that I can share if interesting to you. Now, a few more things to hit on. A lot of it's self-explanatory, but transactions, once there's actually transactions, there could be pending transactions. Maybe they said they're going to pay by check, if you're allowing that, or wire or whatever. You can see the status of different transactions. That'll all be here, and you can export all this information. Documents, again, if there's any documents that are waiting e-signature or access requests, that's one of the things. You'll want to log in periodically to the platform as you're actively raising, especially as you're actively marketing it. If you're marketing it, which if you're doing an open offering that allows you to, I suggest you do, because just because you list a deal on the platform does not mean you're going to get seen and funded. You might, but you still need to market and do your own efforts to get people to see your deal. Access requests. So if anyone asks that request to see those specific documents, this is where you'll get notified. And if you're allowing people to download documents like your deck or something like that, this will let you know who downloaded the documents as well. Now, engagement. This is also something that differs, and I'll switch screens in a second, but this is something that differs from most other investment platforms as well. If you're using a WeFunder or Republic or Start Engine or one of these others, you actually don't get to see granularly who's interacting with your deal until they've actually invested or done something to that level. Then you find out. In this case, we want to help you as much as possible, and it's not our business model to own all the investor data. So in this case, I'm going to switch screens here. Just give me 1 second. We let you see what's going on. So now, here we go. Okay, so I've just shared a new screen. In this case, we're going to go look at one of these new test deals that I have up. When you click on engagement, if it's actually launched, you'll get brought to a page like this, investor journey. So this is showing who has made it where in the journey of interacting with your deal. And what I mean by that is from being a new lead, which if you hover, these users have yet to show any interest in this offering. Essentially what it means is someone clicked and then they didn't do anything. So they clicked on your offering and just didn't do anything. Initial interest means they started looking around. First engagement, maybe clicked around and started doing something. Reviewing documents, signing documents, payment processing. So you can see who and how many people made it to each stage. And then you can click like, oh, who's reviewing documents? When you click on it, it'll actually show you everyone who's in that stage. It'll show their name. It even shows what pages they're looking at, how much time is spent looking at it, so you can very granularly see what the interaction with your offering is. And that's important as well. And why we have this granularity is actually more from a compliance legal reason. If for some reason you were ever sued or an investor had an issue or something like that, FINRA or the SEC may come and say, hey, we need a review and make sure that everything's in place. So everything is auditable and tracked on the platform for compliance reasons. So if you're a broker dealer or an advisor or another type of investment group, that will be very big for you and your compliance teams as well. So here you can also, under engagement, there's emails that you can send out if you want to send things to certain accounts and things like investors and things like that. So I am going to switch back to this other screen, and then we'll wrap up and I'll start answering your questions, because I have a lot of people throwing in questions now, which is great. And if you have questions, now is the time to put them in the chat, because I'm going to look over in just a second. So on that note, running through what it actually requires to list a deal on the platform. Obviously, you need to create an issuer account. You need to start uploading your deal. You can do that free. You don't need our permission. You can start listing your deal and playing around right now, even if you know you're not going to raise for a few months or however long. Now, there's two things to go through, and then we'll get into the specific requirements. So I mentioned earlier, there's two types of deals you'll find. There's a test the waters, and there's like test the waters indicate interest, and there's a full-blown ready to take capital deal. Test the waters campaigns have been legal now broadly for about 2 years, although a lot of people still don't do them. In my opinion, I'm not giving official advice, but in my opinion, they are great for young companies and startups, those who maybe haven't raised capital or structured a deal before, or even mature groups, but that have 5 deals to choose from and they want to garner interest to see which one has the most interest to start with first, because they're not going to do all 5 deals at once. What this does is this allows you to get at least the generic basic information of what you're doing, not the deal terms, but the basic information of what you're doing up sooner and in front of potential investors. You garner that interest and feedback, and then based on that feedback, you can decide if you should move forward, if you should tweak things, or maybe that you just shouldn't do the deal in the first place. I have seen this work out already on the platform. A not specific example is a startup that thinks they want to structure a deal a certain way in their mind, but depending on the investor, they might not like that structure. And what I mean by that, and where this comes into play, is there's institutional investors, there's angel investors, there's angel groups, there's different firms, there's companies looking for acquisitions, there's different types of investors, and they don't always like the same types of deal terms. A venture capital firm is probably going to be a lot more strict than many of the angel investors. They might want a board seat where an angel investor might not. So there's a lot of different ways to structure a deal, and this is where testing the water comes into play and really helps you see if there's interest. Is the interest coming from one type of investor over another? Maybe you're only attracting investors that you don't want anything to do with, so you should change your marketing or something to attract different ones. Or maybe the feedback you're getting is no one thinks it's a good deal and you shouldn't spend time, money, effort, legal on it. So I encourage, if it makes sense, to explore testing the waters. before you spend tons of money, especially if you don't know, or if it's your first time raising capital, maybe drafting up documents and audits or whatever you might have to do. So that's one. And then obviously there's just if you're taking in capital and you're ready to go. So how do you list on the platform? Create an account, start building out the deal, submit it, notify me. We'll jump on. We'll go through details. We'll make sure all the core things in our checklist are checked off, that you're representing things well. We'll give you feedback that we have. But before anything can go live, we also have a listing fee. So although we're a nonprofit, we can't do everything for free because I still got to pay for the platform and technology and things like that. However, unlike most other investment platforms, because we're not getting involved in the deal and it's not our goal to be rich off of this, we don't charge any percentage of how much is being raised. Common percentages on other platforms would be 6 to 10%. We don't charge any percentage or success-based. We can't even take success-based compensation. So we have a one-time listing fee, and that amount is going to depend on how much you're raising. That fee is going to range anywhere from $500 to $3,000 to $4,000 on the very high end if you're getting like 100 million type size deals. So that's a sliding scale. One thing we do is we give a $150 discount to any small companies, startups that have gone through or are currently going through an online program like an accelerator or an incubator or entrepreneurship center, things like that. We do give a good discount to those because we think that's really important to help prepare you to raise capital, is going through a lot of these programs. So we do give a discount to young companies who elect to go through a program. And then assuming everything's in place, it passes our review board, everything like that, then we can push it live. At that point, we're happy to coordinate with you from a marketing standpoint. So let's say you have a big marketing plan of pushing it out through social and whatever, let us know so we can let our marketing team know. And we can at least be aware of your efforts, of what's going on. If we have anything specific that we're doing that would make sense to collaborate on with you guys, or when we put out an email or maybe pushing out a post talking about some of the deals on Impeller, we can let you know so you can like and share and reshare and things like that. Happy to coordinate how we're able to. What we cannot do is we can't play favorites and just market one deal just to market it. We can announce, hey, this is a new deal. Sure, that's fine, but we can't play favorites in any way, shape, or form. So most of our marketing of the platform is the platform itself. We may at times do something like a highlight of, hey, check out all the agricultural investment opportunities that keep coming to the island, but we're not favoriting any one over the other. So those are some of the ways that we work together. Now I'm going to look over here and see what questions we have. Rockies Venture Club. I'll look into that. Issuers in the manufacturing sector of food and beverage are qualified projects. Yeah, so Carlos, we don't discriminate in that sense. As long as it's a solid and legal deal, it's game. And if it's not going to make the island look bad. So like we probably wouldn't let a porn site or something raise capital on the platform. But as long as it's something like kosher and legitimate, it can list on the platform. And I probably should have said this sooner. One of the most important things of why the whole platform is created is to help Puerto Rico. So to list, there does have to be a Puerto Rico connection. And what that means can be a few different things. The end goal is that we're helping the Puerto Rico economy. So first off is if it's domiciled and registered here in Puerto Rico, that's kind of a shoo-in because it's a Puerto Rico entity. Maybe it's a company expanding to the island, but its headquarters is somewhere else in the world. That's fine. But if they're expanding into the island, setting up a shop, maybe another office, whatever operations, that's okay too. Particularly if it's employing people and or investing money into the island. So there just needs to be some sort of connection, whether it's an actual Puerto Rican company or contributing to the Puerto Rico economy, normally through jobs and or capital expenditures into the island. So that is another thing we look through as well. We're not going to be a platform for any random project. It has to benefit Puerto Rico. And we are putting together a list, Gary. Thanks for that. We'll be sending out, so a couple of things on that. One, make sure you're following Invest PR. In general, we have our email newsletters and things we send out. We're getting ready to push out a service provider's webpage, actually, maybe as soon as this month. We're just getting those loaded up that has CPAs and lawyers and things. And we already have some short lists and a PDF that we can share for those. We will be listing more and more resources on this page over the next couple months as well. So service providers, as you're mentioning, as well as some basics and links to other groups that can help you really supercharge maybe your investments and strategies in that regard, or to brushing up as a founder or issuer of the deal as well. If you happen to be a service provider or know really good ones, or maybe you've raised capital and have a really good recommendation for an accountant or something like that, by all means, let me know. We're happy to vet them, and if they're good and check the boxes, we can put them in and as referrals as well. And just like that, though, we don't play favorites of any one service provider. So we'll probably share multiple as applicable to you if you're looking for help on that front. Yeah, there we go. So in the chat, you can email to getproven@investpr.org. Now, if you have any questions about Impeller, you already have accounts, you can hit contact us, anything on the platform. You can also email impeller@investpr.org. We'll put that in the chat as well. That'll go to me and anyone else who's monitoring the platform, so we can answer your questions there. For my sake, I do ask that you go through and do as much as you can when you're listing your deal before we jump on to go through a call, just because it does take some time. We have a lot of interest, so that's a good thing to have. But go through everything you can, fill out everything you can, and then come to me with your specific questions, and we can be very targeted in what we're doing. I'm really excited. We have consistent investor interest on the island. In the last year, I've probably personally spoken to almost $2 billion worth of interest who want to invest in Puerto Rico if they find the right types of projects and the right types of operators and founders behind those projects. So the more we can get on Impeller and in front of these investors, the more deals we can get funded and the more we can grow our island. So if you have any other questions, I'll check one more. Okay. For specific questions, yeah, you can just reach out to the Impeller email and I'll be monitoring that. So I'll reach out then personally if you have any specific questions on a deal that's already listed or anything else as well. Thank you again. We're excited. Impeller is a platform for the island, so feel free to adopt it as your own. Share it with anyone in your circles, in your ecosystem, whether they be investors, whether they be on-island companies looking to raise. We want to get the word out, and we want to supercharge this because there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of awesome projects that need to be funded. So thank you for tuning in, and reach out if you have any questions. Thanks, everyone.